When we think about AI inside the agency, I want us to take just a second and kind of back our thinking up a little and think about technology more generally. Whenever we're sitting here watching this, more than likely you're either on a phone or a computer. And within the agency, a personal computer is something that really started showing up in the early 80s. I was fortunate to have grown up in a household where my dad was actually an IBM employee for over 30 years. And as he and I were talking about AI one day several months back, we were talking about some of the complex and really amazing things that it can do within the business. And he paused for a second, and we both kind of came to the realization all at one time that as you really think about what AI can do as it transforms the future of our businesses within the agency, the reality is it's really no more complex than the computer has been for the last 20 or 30 years. As the computer became more and more of a normal thing, it just became a part of our life. It was a part of the workflow that we used every day. And today, you're probably watching this on a laptop or have a computer sitting at your desk, and it's a permanent fixture of you within your business. It's simply a tool. As we talk about AI inside the agency, and I'm extremely excited to get this project kicked off, that's what I really want to frame it around is it is just simply a tool that we use inside the agency, and it's understanding how we apply that tool to workflows that really takes us from concept to execution. And together, I hope that we get there. The purpose of this video is really simple. I want us to set a baseline as we think about the things that we're going to talk about on each week's call and some of the post call conversations that will ultimately spin up out of it. These conversations at times are going to get nerdy and high level. If you think about it in a college framework, the goal is to stay at that 200 and 300 level course. My objective here within this call is to take just a few minutes that you stay with me, and let's set a baseline so that as we come into the call each week, we've got an understanding of what exists within the market, where we can go. And as we talk about some of these more complex workflows on the call from week to week, it gives us that opportunity to really have something to dig into. And this is also going to serve as a resource moving forward that we can come back to if we've got questions about that baseline. My name is Matthew Henry, and I'm one of the proud co-founders of FEWise Solutions, which is the parent company of EffyZoom. See, as you can probably already tell as I've talked through the video to this point, I'm not in Silicon Valley somewhere. I'm sitting right here in North Mississippi. Our technology business was born right inside the walls of McWright Insurance Group. You see, we're not just doing things every day that we try to apply a theoretical solution to. Everything that we talk about was founded around a real problem, and it was vetted and tested within a real agency, which gives us the ability to make sure that as we talk about these things, we can really work with you to make an impact. So the way that this all started was a couple of weeks ago. I was fortunate enough to get to speak to a big I group outside of Chicago, and we really themed that workshop around AI inside the agency. And as we continue to think through that in each week's call and continue that thread on, I really want to take just a second to back up and root us in something that we did in that workflow, and understanding that it really does not matter what technology we talk about if we don't understand fundamentally how the work happens to start with. When you sit down and you're thinking about how can we apply technology and AI inside the agency, my biggest challenge would be to take all of that away from the problem you're trying to solve. You've got a pain point in mind that you're seeking to find a resolution for. And what I would ask you is that you take just a minute and go to the start of that pain point. If you think about it from the beginning to the end, realistically, something started it. If we use an example as simple as a renewal, that start may be that the renewal is 45 days out. And what we would consider success there is that that renewal actually was renewed successfully and or remarketed, and that customer is still a customer of the agency. So the thing that I want you to think through is actually what are the steps that happen between that starting and ending point as it relates to how do we deal with the customer, and internally, what do we actually do to do those things? Who's the person that does it? What's the action trigger that causes that next step to happen? Define those things out. Don't overcomplicate the technology and how this flows. Once you've defined that out, at that point is when you can pick some of those biggest pain points and apply tech to them. Because if there's one theme that we're going to carry through the call as I moderate it, something that I'll keep us on a line of is making sure that we never lose the sight of the value in the relationships within the agency. Each one of us that are on the call are there for a reason. It's because we're sitting within agencies that have valued relationships for a really long time. And I don't care how good AI or technology is, it never replaces the relationship that you were able to build when you connect two people together. The goal is that we take the technology and the AI and actually find ways that we can expedite that relationship. And as I say expedite, I want to set another fundamental thing that we're going to consider within this conversation. AI is an amazing tool. It expedites anything that you apply to it. If you apply a really good workflow to it and you work it within that workflow, it is going to expedite that workflow and help your team go through the day more effectively. But the reality is, and the reason that I asked you to map out that workflow is a simple reason. And it's because if you apply AI to chaos, all it's going to give you is accelerated chaos. It is not going to help you. And that's the goal that I want us to carry through these calls, is realizing that if we don't take just a minute to step back and think about what we actually need to accomplish, the reality is that we're going to open up an environment where we're just introducing more and more chaos into the agency. 9 times out of 10, the problem with that is not that you feel the pain from it. The problem is that your team feels the pain, and worse than that, your customers feel the pain. As we think about some of the things that will be introduced in these calls, one of the really good examples that came up was somebody who was using Claude, and what they did was they surfaced 88 documents that had been signed by a customer but never made it to the customer file. That is a big exposure within the agency, and it's something that, as we navigate through how we can use these things effectively, those are the things that we're looking to solve for. Yes, a human could have dug in and found those 88 files in email or DocuSign sitting in the queue. But what happened was is Claude plugged in and it went out and it actually exposed and found those documents, compared them against the customer application or the customer files, and then the outcome was is it came back and it said, "Hey, we've got this list that nobody has taken care of. Do you want me to apply these to the customer files?" To which the obvious answer to that was yes. When you think about the things that you can do, one of the most important things that was said on our first call together was if you hand your team a chat box and expect magic, you can guarantee failure. The reality is that as we try to navigate this process of making a transition into more effectively using these tools, we can't just hand it to our team. It is it is the responsibility of the agency owners to take a minute, or whoever is responsible for these workflows and operational excellence points, is to take just a few minutes and say, how do we roll this out effectively where it truly can benefit our team? That's something that we get the fortunate benefit of doing every single day. And as we get to watch agencies that have done it successfully, what we've came to realize is it doesn't necessarily cut your staff or replace your team. What it does is it expedites your team ability to do the things that they wanted to do anyway. How do we get to make that phone call to somebody that we know just needs a touch? Previously, sometimes that just didn't happen because as humans, we go to where the most attention is necessary and we focus there. So, from a baseline perspective, let's talk through a few fundamental terms and just kind of the things that are going to get discussed. The first and most important one is going to be the difference between a chat interface and an actual agentic scheduled workflow. So, both things can somewhat live together, but as you think about a scheduled workflow, that is something where you have set a goal for the AI tool, and its job is to go out and complete that on its own with human in the loop. So maybe that's a renewal flow and it's going through and creating your quote proposal. Its job is not that you have to sit there and watch it. Its job is to go get it, and when it's done, it will tell you that it's finished and it'll hand it back to you. A chat interface is different. A chat interface is where you just simply are looking to go ask it a question or quiz that next thing that you want to talk to it about, and you use that almost as you would an assistant that's sitting right here at your desk. I tell everybody that we talk to about this, if I can tell you the best way to prompt, it's simply to talk to it as it were a human that were sitting next to you. If you were going to ask the person that were next to you to give you an answer about a subject or possibly to help you with something, how would you say that to them? Hit the microphone button within your AI and just literally say the same thing. The goal is not that we try to be perfect in how we handle it. It's that we get practice and we start to go in the right direction. So now that we've kind of touched what a chat is and a scheduled task, let's talk for a second about some of the things that are going to play into those. As you think about these different AI tools, they all call it something different. It's a project in Claude, it's a custom gem inside of Gemini. ChatGPT considers it a GPT. all of these are projects. What that is it's an isolated piece of information where you bring all of that knowledge into a central point and it doesn't go outside of it. So if you think about maybe the renewal process, if you've got a lot of knowledge that goes into that renewal process, several documents, a SOP, maybe that's what a project calls for. Maybe you've got a special line of business that you work and it's something that you've got a lot of custom documentation about. You've got a lot of things that are niche about it that you want to make sure that they're contained. That's what lives in a custom GPT or a project. The next big thing, and specifically with Claude, is going to be skills. Skills are something that you think about that you want to have a performed outcome happen consistently over and over again. Whether that's a way that it specifically maybe uses a web browser, or it can even be as something as simple as a brand voice. A brand voice is how your agency talks. You don't want to rely on Claude to talk in its own language to your customers. There's ways that I use words that are unique to me. The moment that I send you a piece of communication or publish something within our content that does not sound like me, it immediately reads that way. We're in an environment where it's more and more known that people are using these tools, and sometimes it's discounted by people that are like, oh, that was just an AI writing. So take a minute, build that brand voice skill. That way, whenever you ask it to write something on your behalf, what you'll get back is actually a really high quality piece of information that sounds just like you. That's super simple to do. And the goal is that we're going to get through some of those things and talk about it. On the more complex side, maybe you have a skill that combines a few things together. So, for instance, for us, we've got a skill that writes our blog content. It does have that agency voice skill. That's incredibly important. But then it also has a web content skill. That web content skill understands the things that are important to us that we want to write about and talk to our audience. So, what it does is on a weekly basis, it combines those two skills together at a scheduled time and it writes the content that it's supposed to publish for that week, then sends an email of the outcome and lets us know what it published. That way we can, as humans, review it and make sure that it works. These are just some simple examples of ways that we can use skills or projects within our AI tools. The last thing that I want to touch is security. Look, we're not going to overcomplicate this. If it's free, you're the product. If it's not free, you need to just make sure that you're on a professional plan of some kind. It's fine if you're just getting into this if you sign up for a personal pro plan with one of the platforms. But if you're going to look at your team using this, I would highly recommend that you look at a Claude team plan or a ChatGPT team plan that allows you as an organization to set the boundaries around what you want to actually manage within the organization and things like that brand voice skill. It carries across the organization beyond just you. The biggest thing that I really want you to kind of take a second and go back to is what I said earlier though. Those workflows have existed within your agencies for years. They have successfully existed within your agency for years. You don't have to reinvent the wheel to do this successfully. What you have to do is you've got to take a minute and sit down and actually write out what that wheel looks like. Often we live where we've got so much tribal knowledge in the agency. Our best CSR knows exactly how to manage the renewal flow, or that producer that's really good with commercial work knows all the nuances of how they close deals. But until we document that, we cannot effectively leverage AI to expedite it. So, what I would challenge you with is just that we document better. If you think about something that you might want to leverage with AI, document it and feed it to it. Give it its knowledge source so it understands and can effectively help you move through the day. And then from there, the goal is that every single week we get to expand on this. I'm excited to kick this off. It's something that we're fortunate to be able to host. It all started out of the concept that we were going to bring together some of the connector users. Zoom does have a product that we probably will talk about at times in the call. It's $40 a month and it connects Agency Zoom and Claude or ChatGPT together. Super simple concept. It's not something we're going to dwell on and it's not what the call is going to be about, but it's something that we're excited to provide. And it was the concept that really kicked this off and gave us the idea to open it up and see what agencies are doing. Y'all are best when you help one another. And I'm excited to be the middle of that gets to facilitate and help us talk about that conversation. And as we all learn and grow together, we're going to see some really amazing things because I've already got to witness some of the really creative ways that agencies are leveraging these tools. Thank you so much, and I look forward to each week's call.